Hey there, it's Sarah again, and I've got quite the story to share. So let's rewind about a year ago. I'm 29, married to Alex, who's 30, and we've been together for nearly 7 years now. We've got two amazing kids, and honestly, I used to think we were the definition of a perfect match. But then came that fateful night. I went out with some friends for a birthday bash, and let's just say I got a bit too carried away with the drinks. There was this guy there who'd been flirting with me all evening. And, well, one thing led to another, and I ended up making a colossal mistake. I slept with him. As soon as the haze of alcohol cleared, the guilt hit me like a ton of bricks. I knew I had to come clean to Alex, so I took a taxi home and spilled my heart out, tears streaming down my face. Alex's initial reaction? Silence. But then, out of nowhere, he dropped a bombshell. He wanted a divorce. I was devastated. I begged and pleaded for another chance, and somehow he reluctantly agreed to give counselling a shot. Now, here's where things take a turn. Counselling sessions with Alex felt like talking to a brick wall. He'd show up, sure, but his mind was elsewhere, buried in his phone, scrolling away like our marriage didn't even matter. It was like trying to have a meaningful conversation with a ghost. Despite his lack of engagement, I poured every ounce of energy into trying to salvage our relationship. I became a one-woman cleaning crew, tackling every chore in the house with military precision. I cooked, I cleaned, I juggled the kids' schedules, all while trying to keep a smile plastered on my face, pretending like everything was fine. But here's the kicker. I agreed to do things in the bedroom that made my skin crawl, all in a desperate attempt to please Alex. It felt like I was sacrificing pieces of myself just to keep him from walking out the door. Yet, despite my best efforts, Alex's behavior only seemed to worsen. He'd fly into these explosive rages, hurling hurtful insults my way, sometimes loud enough for the kids to overhear. Other times, he'd freeze me out completely, strolling past me like I was invisible. And the cherry on top? He'd constantly bring up my mistake, using it as ammunition in our arguments. He'd tell me he regretted ever marrying me, like a dagger to the heart every time. So here I am, teetering on the edge of despair, wondering if there's any hope left for our marriage. Can we overcome this hurdle, or are we doomed to drift further? Apart? Amidst the turmoil of our relationship, there's an additional layer of pain I'm grappling with. My husband, Alex, has been engaging in conversations with another woman. Whenever I confront him about it, he redirects the blame, throwing my past indiscretion back at me. It's as though he's using my moment of weakness to rationalize his own actions, and the weight of it all is crushing. Though I lack concrete evidence of his infidelity, the mere fact that he's been communicating with someone else behind my back is enough to drive me to the brink of despair. What's even more distressing is his reaction when I try to address it. On one occasion, when I stumbled upon a message from this other woman on his phone and dared to broach the subject, he erupted. With a grip that felt more like a vice, he dragged me to the main hall, gesturing at the door as if to say, "Leave if you can't handle it." My feelings were inconsequential to him, as if he had become a stranger, a heartless stranger. It feels like I'm losing the man I once cherished, the compassionate, devoted partner who stood by my side through thick and thin. Now he's transformed into someone unrecognizable, a shadow of his former self. Despite the agony, my love for him remains steadfast, and all I yearn for is to mend our fractured family. Before stumbling upon the update, a comment caught my attention, resonating deeply within me. A user named me_seeks82 urged me to consider granting him the divorce he seemingly desires. They emphasized my grave error in succumbing to temptation and suggested that Alex might be struggling to comprehend my betrayal. While they acknowledged the inappropriateness of his outbursts, they empathized with his plight, acknowledging his frustration. It forced me to confront the painful truth lurking beneath the surface. Armed with newfound resolve, I summoned the courage to confront Alex about our tumultuous situation. Approaching him, I braced myself for the inevitable, prepared to accept his decision, be it to part ways or endeavour to salvage our marriage. Through tear-filled eyes, I professed my enduring love for him, regardless of the outcome, and expressed my willingness to fight for our union with every fibre of my being. As I bared my soul to him, I witnessed the anguish etched upon his face, the torment we both endured. It was an agonizing moment of truth, fraught with uncertainty. Would he choose to sever our ties, or could we find the strength to forge ahead together? Only time would reveal the answer. Yet amidst the uncertainty, one certainty remained. I would continue to love him unconditionally, unwaveringly, for eternity. So after pouring my heart out to Alex, he didn't say anything at first. He just hugged me tightly and started crying. And you know what? I started crying too. It was like a floodgate had opened, and for the first time in a long while, I felt his genuine love and emotion. After what felt like forever, he finally let go and asked me to sit down with him. That's when he opened up to me. He told me he still loves me and our kids deeply, but it's hard for him to forget what happened. Those images of what I did keep haunting him, making him feel angry and hurt. He admitted that he's had other women flirt with him over the years, but he never strayed because we meant more to him than any fleeting pleasure. He said he loved me too much to ever hurt me like that. Hearing those words shattered me even more. He confessed that he'd been chatting with other women recently, but he never went further because it didn't feel right to him. It was like he was trying to fill a void inside, but nothing seemed to fit. When I told him he could move on if he needed to, it was like a weight lifted off his shoulders. He said it was the first time he felt like I truly understood his pain. He's hurting too, and he needs time to figure things out on his own. He said he doesn't know what the future holds for us, but for now, he wants to be single and focus on himself. He hopes we can find our way back to each other someday, but for now, we need to be apart. I agreed to sign the divorce papers if that's what he wants. I don't want anything from him. Whatever he brought into the marriage is his, and I don't want to take it away. Even though he earns more, I don't want child support either. Money isn't what matters to me. Hearing all of this made him cry even more. He said he hopes he can forgive me one day, but for now, we need this time apart. He'll get a lawyer and bring the divorce papers in a week or so. I don't want to be with anyone else after the divorce. I just want him to come back to me so we can be a family again. I wish I could undo everything. I feel so much regret, like I've lost the one person who truly completes me. And there's this comment from someone named Eros Tyrannus. They said that in some ways, my cheating was both better and worse for him. I'll share my thoughts on that later. Your mistake wasn't intentional. It wasn't something you planned or meant to hurt your husband with. It happened in a moment of weakness, a lapse of judgment that's all too human. Your husband is likely struggling because he's realizing that you, the woman he married, aren't flawless. You have your imperfections just like everyone else. I can't say for certain what he based his identity on, but if he saw himself as the kind of guy whose wife would never cheat, that idealized image has been shattered. He's probably questioning who he is now and what his marriage means. It's as though the very foundation of what he believed about your relationship has crumbled beneath him. However, amid the wreckage, there's a glimmer of hope. From the ruins of what once was, something new can emerge. It's akin to how a forest fire clears the way for new growth. You can't rewind time and erase what happened, but you can start anew. It won't be identical to what you had before, but that doesn't mean it can't be good in its own way. This doesn't absolve you of your mistake. It's about acknowledging it and finding a path forward. Others on this subreddit have shared similar sentiments about rebuilding from the ground up. It's conceivable that your husband is wrestling with his own guilt. He insists he never cheated, but perhaps he entertained thoughts about it when other women flirted with him. We all have those what-if moments. What if we did something wrong and got away with it? Sometimes those thoughts reveal our darker sides. He may also be feeling remorseful for how he's treated you. Despite your mistake, you've been making efforts to make amends. He might sense that you're putting in more effort than he is. Perhaps he needs to acknowledge that and find his own way to reconcile. So, while it may seem like everything is falling apart now, there's still hope for the future. It won't be effortless, and it won't happen overnight, but if both of you are committed to the process, you can rebuild something stronger than before. These images just won't leave my mind. Sometimes I question if I even deserve to be with her. If I truly were a good person, wouldn't I have forgiven her by now and moved on? Perhaps my mistreatment of her stems from a belief that I'm not a bad guy deep down. Maybe I've been clinging to the idea that if she were to leave, it wouldn't be because of me being bad, but because of who she is. I'm uncertain if I can place my trust in her again. And I imagine she's unsure of herself too. Is she the loving wife and mother who's made mistakes but endeavors to mend them? Or is she the woman who succumbed to drunkenness and regrets her actions? The reality is she's both and neither simultaneously. She didn't intend to betray me when she started drinking that night, but that's where it led her. Perhaps she needs to contemplate whether she's willing to forsake drinking to become the person committed to our marriage. Rebuilding trust isn't a straightforward task. It requires more than mere apologies. In my eyes, she's now human, with her own set of flaws, just like me. She may make promises she cannot uphold, as I've done in the past. How can I entrust her with my faith again, knowing there's a possibility she might let me down once more? It necessitates courage to expose my heart and extend trust to her anew, despite the prospect of further disappointment. But I mustn't be naive. I'm unaware of what the future holds. She might betray my trust again. After all, we're only human. So, what's the course of action for her? She must summon the courage to transform into the individual who doesn't betray my trust. She needs to ask herself, who is that woman? What does she resemble? And then strive tirelessly to embody her. You need to aim to become the person you want to be, just like you'd like your husband to see you. Remember, he's just as human as you are, which means he's prone to the same human flaws and mistakes as you are. If you want to reconcile, your husband will need to summon the courage to say, I'm choosing to trust you again, even though I know you might hurt me again. Because I believe in the people we can be when we're together, and that's worth more than just trust. I hope whatever happens, both of you find happiness in your lives. Personally, I think divorcing him might be the best option for both of you. Even after a year, he might still feel defeated, and it's not healthy for you to hold on to the hope of getting back together. You only regretted what happened after it was too late, not during the act, or even when you were with him. Blaming alcohol doesn't really work here, especially since you confessed right away. Maybe finding a new therapist could help you move forward. It's not a good idea to say you won't see anyone else in hopes that your husband will come back to you. You cheated so easily that one night with a guy who was flirting with you. It'd be hard to believe it. Wouldn't happen again, especially if you're single. Good luck to everyone involved, and I wish you all the best.